Good evening, everybody, and what an evening it has been. This game went most of the way I expected it to go, but there was a little bit more goaltender input than I expected. But luckily, Bussy was up to the challenge. We're going to talk about him a lot, which seems to be a reoccurring theme lately. Like this dude is just making every headline everywhere. This is more than just a small sample size now. It is far beyond that. Like this is 21 games that he's played now, I believe. And you guys know me and my superstitions. 21 is a number that I hold very near and dear to my heart. This guy he's for real. I was reluctant to say it. I'm always reluctant to say that. It took me almost 2 years to buy into the Aho hype. Brandon Bussy has me believe in stuff after 21 games. I mean, granted, the team wasn't good back when Aho first got there, but that's not the point. This is Skylark. I'll talk about that a little bit. I'll get to that though, but this guy's for real. I'm actually like it would be a waste if they don't get a trade done to improve the team before going in. You've been waiting for years for this type of goaltending ever since Freddie started to, kind of start to trend downhill. And he's been good lately too. So you might have the tandem you need even without Kochekov being there. Your defense looks good even when it's not fully healthy. Slavin is looking a little bit more up to speed every game. I thought he was really good tonight. That last shift, he sold out to block a couple of shots. So he didn't get in front of them, but he disrupted some passing lanes to, make those chances less dangerous. I'm standing by what I said about Martinook. I think he needs a game in the press box. He's not, and that's not because it's not that I dislike Martinook. Anyone who knows me knows that I really, really like Jordan Martinook. But I know enough about him from watching him play since he was the first trade of the Dundon era. It was during the playoffs because Carolina and Arizona were both out of the playoffs, and they traded Marcus Kruger and Jordan Martinook 1-for-1. And that ended up being like a very positive impact for the Hurricanes. I mean, they do owe a large part of their success to Jordan Martinook. But the last few weeks in particular, I feel like he's not himself. Maybe it's injury related or something. I'm not trying to like crap on the guy or anything, but he's not playing his normal way. And it's not like when Aho went through his little drought where he was, just not great for 6 games or however long it was. He's just not, something's not right with him right now. I mean, he'll play through it, whatever it is. And I know that saying that saying that I think he should go to the press box means nothing. We all know he never will, unless like he's actually legitimately hurt, which maybe he is. But Martinook's been a little bit off to me. There's chance that, he's a low percentage guy as far as finishing chances anyway, but it's low even for him right now. He had a couple of great A's tonight that he just couldn't get done. And, there were a couple of times where he got outskated and lost foot races, which is stuff he definitely doesn't normally do. So, and people may point out, well, he, created that goal the other night with the forecheck on Luke Hughes. It's Luke Hughes. It's like chasing a traffic cone with an RC car underneath it. Once you get him in a corner, you got it. So, or 22 games. I said 21 earlier. It was 21 games before tonight. But Martinook's a little bit off right now. He'll come out of it. He's a good player. He always has been. He'll get through it. He'll get back to playing his role the right way and everything like that. And he's still playing the right way for the most part. But like that, he's one of those guys that's very noticeable and very impactful every shift. He brings a lot of intangibles. His presence is normally felt. And I just don't feel like he's been that way that lately. Again, this is not me trying to crap on Martinook. I like Martinook. There's only one player on this team I don't like. And at the end of the day, I don't really hate him. At this point, it's just more of a gimmick, kind of like the Brady Shea thing. Scott Moore, on the other hand, I did actually hate. And I still hate till this day. But that's neither here nor there. So we're going to get into the stuff here with the show and everything like that. I've got a bunch of notes on this one. I took them right after I got done making my burgers and everything like that. So this was a very, very eventful game. This is actually one of the best games, if not the best game I've seen all season. It was exciting. It was fun. And for those of you who were not fans back in 2006, the Buffalo Sabres are the Carolina Hurricanes' true enemy. Not rival, not adversary, enemy. It is practically war. Minus the true bodily harm aspect. If there is one team that you as a Hurricanes fan don't hate enough, no matter how much you hate them, it's the Banana Slugs. So learn to hate them. Learn to hate them hard. Just one more quick plug here. We got the store started up. Couple of hats, couple of stickers and everything. So those are all on there. The link to the store is in the description if you want to pick one up. I kept the prices as low as I could. I'm only turning a $3 profit on one hat, $4 or $3 profit on the Do It Right trucker, which is the black one. The Tomcast trucker, I'm turning a $2 profit on. The main logo, I'm turning a $2 profit on, and the other two decals, I'm turning a $1 profit on. So I made sure to keep the price down, but please, guys, go check that stuff out if you want to pick yourself up some merch. There will be more there. There will be tank tops, T-shirts, hoodies, all that type of stuff. I just haven't taken the time to get them all designed yet, and I don't want to just throw a logo on something and it be done. I want it to look good. So when if you decide you want to pick up some merch, the link is in the description as well. If you like what I do, I also have a link for donations in there that can be submitted through Buy Me a Coffee. All that goes back into the channel and everything like that. I greatly appreciate all the donations I have received, and I will be putting those towards the channel as well so that we can make the content even better. And then closer look at the hats. I really love both these hats. I was really happy with the design that I made in both of them. Anyway, for what you guys came for, Hurricanes win 2-1 against the Buffalo Banana Slugs. Final expected goals 3.14 to 1.9. We're going to talk about a lot about Bussy, but we're going to talk about UPL too, because hats off to UPL. He had a good game. And after he got hit with that 95-mile-an-hour clap bomb from Nikishin, because I think that caught the top of his skate. And for any of you who know anything about goalie skates, especially if you've played goalie before, goalie skates are one-piece boots with a holder now, kind of like regular skaters' skates are. And there used to be a cowling on them to protect your foot. That's not on there anymore. There's probably a few players that still use them, but I doubt a newer goalie like UPL would be using them. Getting hit there hurts. And those toe boxes are shaped anatomically now, and the skates are really light. You feel it if something gets you there. I'm pretty sure that got him just like right barely underneath where the toe curves out on the pillow and got him in the skate. That hurts. That hurts a lot, getting hit with one of those, especially when it's 95 miles an hour and it has time to build up a ton of velocity all the way from the blue line like that shot did. So credit to him for playing through that, because I guarantee you that stung him and probably bothered him for the rest of the game. 5-on-5 goals, 1 apiece. Expected goals at 5-on-5, 2.23 to 1.47. 8-6 for penalty minutes. Power play, Carolina was 1 for 2. Sabres were 0 for 1. Shots on goal, Carolina had 28. The Sabres had 18. Shot attempts, Carolina had 52. Shot attempts for the Sabres were 36. Carolina blocked 6 of their shots. The Sabres blocked 12 of Carolina's. And then face-offs, I actually think I accidentally got that backwards. Forgive me. I was putting this together in a hurry and getting a bunch of stuff done. It was actually 54.2 for Carolina and 45.8 for the Sabres. So we'll leave that up there while we talk about the rest of the game. So in the first period here, it actually was not that close of a period. The second period on paper was actually the closest one, even though it didn't feel like that with the way that the last few minutes of the third period was, because Buffalo really pushed. They did their best to win this game. If it wasn't for Bussy, Carolina doesn't win this game straight up. So in the first, at 1:33 of the first period, Rasmus Dahlin scored on a rush chance. Keep in mind, I talked about the rush chances a whole lot in Landfall Hour today, from Quinn and Zucker. So that was one of the things that, if Buffalo is going to score goals, that's typically how they do it. That was one of those times where you notice they get the puck back in the defensive zone. They make a quick transition play. Their defense loves to activate and join the rush, especially Dahlin. And that's exactly what he did there. And he played his game. He played his identity. Exact type of things you expect Rasmus Dahlin to do on zone exits and on the offensive side of the puck. He did that, and it resulted in a goal. Bussy maybe would have liked to have had that one back. However, here's one thing that we have to consider about that. Getting scored on by Rasmus Dahlin is not the same weight as getting scored on by anyone else. He's one of the best defensemen in the league. He's definitely the best defenseman on that team. He's definitely their best play driver from the blue line. So, getting scored on by someone like Dahlin or Thompson or someone like that, that's one thing. So the whole thing about it is, would he have liked to have had that one back? Sure. Would he? Don't even joke about that, Haggerty. I don't like that guy. But exact type of chance that you expect someone like Dahlin to score on. So not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, especially considering he had a short memory. He recovered from it, and he played incredibly well the rest of the game. The Hurricanes tied it up shortly thereafter. Andrei Svechnikov from Sebastian Aho and Sean Walker. This play was just great all around. The initial poke check by Keandre Miller that kind of, collapsed everybody into the neutral zone in between Carolina's offensive blue line and center ice. Sean Walker steps up, makes a great play at the right time. Aho gets possession of the puck, and they all enter the zone together. Walker joins the rush, and that's more things that the Sabres are having to worry about at that point, and he makes a great pass over to Andrei Svechnikov, who is right on the doorstep, creates his own opportunity there, and gets it done. Eric Robinson left the game. So there were a lot of people saying that hit by Dahlin was dirty. I wouldn't say it was dirty. I would say it was negligent. Dahlin did some questionable stuff in this game, but he always does that. The elbow came up a little bit. Yeah, he threw a little bit more force than he needed into it and everything like that, but Robinson did have his head down. I know he was looking for a loose puck and he was in a vulnerable spot. I'm more pissed off that Jankowski didn't do anything about that, and then he just got turtled in the corner again. That's one of those times where you have to respond to something like that. So Robinson ended up leaving the game with some sort of a upper body issue, and Brendan Moore said he'll be out for a while. So knowing when Rod says someone will be out for a while, that means they will typically miss 4 games. So something like that. Luckily, there's enough depth. Robinson's a pretty big loss, but it's something that you can make up for. As far as depth scorers on this team, Robinson is probably the best depth scorer that you have. So that does suck to lose him. So at the end of that period, shots were 12-3 for Carolina, 1.43 expected goals for Carolina to 0.65 for the Sabres. Shot attempts were 22-9 favoring Carolina, and both teams had 1 goal. When you go into the second period, this period, even though there were no goals scored for either side, was incredibly eventful, and it was very even. 13-13 shot attempts were even. Shots on goal were 8-8. Carolina had 0.61 expected goals to 0.68 for the Sabres. So really, really close. The big story of that period was that Bussy save of the year candidate on Tage Thompson. That was remarkable. I'm gonna make a short of that thanks to Rachel Barkley. I'm gonna upload that on the channel at some point, probably tomorrow sometime, because I got to get to bed early because I got class tomorrow and I got ice time in the morning. There were a few penalties called. There were none called in the first and the second period. Dahlin and Svechnikov decided to have their own little personal parade to the penalty box. Svechnikov 7:15 for roughing. Svech and Dahlin had coincidental minors for roughing at 11:35. Dahlin hooked Ehlers at 16:10. No goals were scored as a result on either of those power plays, but very, very, very even period on paper. And it kind of looked like that, on the broadcast too. Trading chances here and there, a lot of suffocating defense by both sides, a lot of quick transition plays by both sides, but it was a very, very even period. That was one of the most fun periods to watch. I mean, I had emotional investment in because my favorite team and my most hated team were out there at the same time. The only rivalry I get more up for than this one is the Fayetteville Marksmen, formerly known as the Fire Ants, and the Knoxville Ice Bears. I foam at the mouth when that shit goes down. So going on to the third period here, this one, not as even on paper, but Buffalo made a really, really, really hard push at the end. So there was the Owen Power tripping penalty against Stankoven. Luckily, he came back, even though when he went down, it didn't look good. So what I think happened to Stankoven there, I think that he got a Charlie horse. I think he just got a cramp, and I've had that happen to me before. I've had it happen to me playing baseball and hockey both, and it always looks and feels a lot worse than it actually is. And I think that's why he was able to just come back to the ice. He probably just had to stretch it out a little bit and get back out there. And he didn't look any worse for wear while he was out there. He didn't look any slower, but absolute warrior. Good on him for getting back out there. So after that tripping call, Jarvis scores from Svechnikov and Aho. Great set play off the face-off. Jarvis initially does the good reload, which helps get that cycle going. He goes down to the front of the net, gets his own rebound, tucks it in, and that's the end of that. So this is where the Sabres really, really started to press here. You get down to 2:30 to go in the game. Andrei Svechnikov initially drew a call and then was called at the other end for something I thought that was really ticky-tack game management. 4-on-4 ensued from there until the final 30 seconds of the game, and Carolina was able to hold up primarily thanks to Bussy doing amazing things. So By the time that period was over, shot attempts were 17-14 favoring Carolina. Shots on goal were 8-6 favoring Carolina. Expected goals were 1.1 to 0.57 favoring Carolina. And of course, the only goal of the period belonged to the Hurricanes on the power play, courtesy of Seth Jarvis. So that's another multi-point night for Andre Svechnikov and another multi-point night for Sebastian Aho. So Svechnikov had a goal and an assist. Jarvis has a goal. Aho has 2 assists. Walker has an assist. So great job there. The guys that you expect to put up points all put up points tonight. One other thing I want to revisit in the first period, Alexander Nikishin had a remarkable defensive play. Absolutely remarkable defensive play, shutting down that 2-on-1. I personally, I may be biased. I get more excited and I'm more impressed by really crazy, cool defensive plays like that than I ever have been by goals. I don't know why. I think that's why I modeled my game to be a defensive guy personally myself. I just always found that to be such an underrated and undervalued skill set. And I'm so happy that Nikishin did that, especially with this weird, narrative circling around that maybe he won't be in Carolina later. I'm hoping that this game gave helped the front office understand that the stock for this guy is way too good to let him go unless you're bringing back a player that is above his ceiling, especially if it's a known quantity now, is the only way that should go down. And even then, I'd be reluctant to pull the trigger on any trade like that. People talk about, me being someone who really wants Robert Thomas to be a Hurricane, would I trade Nikishin to get him? No, absolutely not. When he was allegedly offered up for Quinn Hughes, that's a different story. But for Robert Thomas, no. There's nobody that I think realistically could be traded that I would have any remote inclination that Alexander Nikishin should be going the other way. I don't want to give up Nystrom or Legault either, but I would give both of them up twice before I would consider giving up Alexander Nikishin. He's not Jacob Slavin. He's not going to defend well every single shift, but he does it well enough to make a net positive at the other end of the ice with the offense that he brings. He is the future of the blue line. Maybe that's why Rod is a little bit harder on him, it seems like, than he is other players, because he has very high expectations for him. So if that's the case, that's fine. But really, really impressed with how he played. So now we're going to talk about the goaltending here a little bit. We'll go ahead and get this off the board. All right. So stats here. I'll go over UPL first. 26 saves on 28 shots, 2 goals against, 929 save percentage, 0.78 goals saved above expected, 10 for 11 on high danger saves, 8 out of 9 on medium danger saves. Bussy, 16 for 17, 1 goal against, 941 save percentage, 128 goals saved above expected, 6 for 6 on high danger saves. That's a big deal here. That's a very big deal here. And then 5 for 6 on medium danger saves. Of course, the only one that he gave up was the one to Dahlin early in the first period. And like I said, he would have liked to have had that one back, but that's an elite player with an elite shot. Sometimes you're just going to give those up no matter what you do. So outstanding performances from both goalies, and Bussy he edged Dahlin barely. He edged UPL barely. But I've always been a firm believer that UPL is a better goalie than people give him credit for. And he's definitely has a longer NHL track record than Brandon Bussy. But Bussy definitely closed that gap. He's closing the gap on the entire league when it comes to his performance as a goalie versus others. So they need to hurry up and try and get this guy paid, because he knows he's a good fit here. He's got great defense in front of him from top to bottom. The team plays well defensively in front of him. I think it would be in everyone's best interest if you get him signed as soon as possible. I've seen some numbers floating around, just speculation, not from anybody like in the front office or anybody that's like super credible about that type of stuff. I saw one proposal for 5 years, $5 million a year. I'm fine with that. Get it done. At that point, it means you're definitely probably going to have to lose Blake or Stankoven to cover that and still have the room left over to sign Nikishin. Do it. Get it done. I'm fine with that. You need both of those guys if you want this team to be competitive for a long time, because certain members of your core are starting to get up there. Jacob Slavin's already over 30. Aho is 28. You got to start making those steps. But very impressed with him. Really liked how Jarvis played. The whole top line, Jarvis, Aho, and Svechnikov, very happy with them. Aho had that one bad turnover that almost resorted in a shorthanded goal, but Alexander Nikishin got back. Speaking of Nikishin on the power play, really, really impressed with how he played on the power play. His ability to walk the line, keep pucks in, use his frame to protect the puck when other people are pressuring him. I was really impressed with what I saw out of pretty much everybody tonight, except for Mark Jankowski. But that's neither here nor there. So we're going to get to some of the comments now, and then I'm going to take that guy over there. Oh, he's laying over there now. I'm going to take him for a WALK. Yeah, I'm talking about you. And then we will go from there. Timmy, what's up, buddy? Bussy, believe. Absolutely. Bussy's not human. Nah, he's not better than AI. Hope Robbie is okay. Yeah, I do too. I mean, I'm hoping it ends up not being that bad. I'll just quote Henrik Lundqvist on Brandon Bussy. And how cool is that photo of them together that Bussy's dad posted? Like, that was really cool. He's no fluke. No, he's not. The kid's good. He's really good. We're getting a segment about potential trades. In this show, not a long one, but I'll talk about it a little bit. So I'm wondering if the market might have some movement now because Rasmus Andersson and Kiefer Sherwood have both moved. And that was two of the big names on the board. As far as Rasmus Andersson goes, people are like, that was an overpay for an expiring UFA. Well, Andersson basically stated that he wanted to, there was a lot of circulation around him that he wanted to go to Vegas over the summer, and it just didn't happen. Now that it has, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't extend there. So I'm confident he'll stay in Vegas. Kiefer Sherwood, as far as being in San Jose, I definitely can see him staying there. They have the means. San Jose has the means and the necessity to sign a player like that. So I can see him getting paid a little bit above what he's worth and it being still a pretty solid deal for both sides. As far as what the Hurricanes are going to do, there's been some traction apparently on Pettersson with Philadelphia and Los Angeles. If he stays out west and goes to Los Angeles, he can't hurt you. And I think one of the reasons the Kings are looking at Pettersson so hard is because Kopitar is about to retire. So they're thinking about what do you do after Kopitar is done. And that's one thing that I think they'll look at is replacing him with a player who has very good defense, because Kopitar is one of the best defensive centers that this era has seen. Replacing him with someone like Pettersson makes complete sense for them. And replacing him with someone with term to replace a guy who's been playing for them forever and that is now about to hang it up makes absolute sense for them. Philly, I think that, me and my buddy Derek Dunn, Suitable Alias, we talked about this a lot when he was on here a couple of weeks ago, that he thought that Pettersson to Carolina would, and he's very, very knowledgeable about the game. He thought Pettersson coming to Carolina would be good for Carolina, and he thinks that could potentially be like the last step. That he would play the way that Brenda Moore wants him to play and everything like that. I'm still kind of out on EP40 for two big reasons. One, the contract, as I've stated in the past, and two, his speed. One of the things that, turned me off to the idea of acquiring Mason McTavish was the lack of speed. Now, granted, McTavish could slim up and get faster and everything like that. Pettersson, it doesn't get much smaller than he already is. The guy's a stick figure as it is already. But as far as who they could potentially acquire, I don't think that it's worth it to look into defensemen. I don't think it should even be on the table. Looking at defensemen, unless just something manifests from another deal, I don't think that Carolina should be looking at acquiring a defenseman at all. There's no point. You have Nystrom, you have Legault, you have Riley as far as guys who are behind your regular six defensemen. Plenty to do there. You don't need to worry about getting a defenseman. I would like to get another winger and build an actual top six. Someone to go with any combination of Jarvis, Ehlers, and Svechnikov, depending on where you want Aho at and who you want him to be with. Of course, the priority remains getting another center. I'm still wondering what that looks like. Now, if Pettersson gets traded, which I think is imminent, I have nothing to back that up. It's just my personal gut feeling is Pettersson getting traded is going to happen sooner rather than later. I wouldn't be surprised if it's before the Olympic break that he gets moved. Now, where his landing spot is, I don't know. But I think you can narrow it down basically to Carolina, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles. All three of those destinations make sense, but Los Angeles actually makes the most sense from a standpoint of their organization. Robert Thomas, no trade clause. There's the complication there, so I don't know how that would work. I know a lot of people have said, well, the Devils suck. Would they trade Nico Hischier? Unfortunately, no. I don't think that they would because I don't think that organization understands that he's better than Jack Hughes. I don't think they believe that. And that will be their downfall if they actually think that. They could sell high on him and his brother both right now and make that team better overnight, but they won't do it. So I would say that Nico is more unrealistic than acquiring Robert Thomas, and especially considering the haul that Carolina would have to give up to make that trade in the division with a team that could have an aligning competitive window if they play their cards right and could be right back in the fight as soon as this season, but more than likely next season. So there's that. I think Boone Jenner would be my choice between the two that have been talked about in Columbus. Between him and Charlie Coyle, I'd rather get Jenner. That's someone who I think would be better for Carolina to acquire as a stopgap. That gives them some time to figure out what they're going to do as far as getting another center in the future. But that would be good. That would be a good stopgap thing. And then additionally, that gives you a guy who can take over Jordo's spot when he retires, provided that they get another center. Ryan O'Reilly, I'm not expecting that because Nashville's in the hunt now, so they're not going to move anyone out. That's about it right now as far as what I'm thinking of trade boards and everything like that, because two guys that Carolina could have potentially acquired, one of them being Rasmus Anderson, which didn't make much sense to me personally, and the other being Kiefer Sherwood, or they're off the table. So, and I think Pettersson's about to go off the table, and I have a feeling he's going to go to LA. It makes perfect sense why they would want him to replace Kopitar. See, whereas Carolina's not looking to replace anyone, they're looking to supplement. LA has a lot more to gain by acquiring Pettersson than Carolina does in the long term. So that's personally what I think right now. I'll swap 80% of the team for Sabres. 18-3-1, just absurd. Kane's defense isn't even really playing like the Kings defense either, but it doesn't matter. He gets wins. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Once the defense is completely healthy and stays completely healthy, which hopefully by the playoffs they'll be doing that, then Bussy is, he's going to have even more help in front of him and everything like that. And everything will be okay when that happens. 18 wins in 22 games, another NHL record for Bussy. That is amazing. One of the Bussy games was one of the Florida games. Really, he should be 19-2-1. The team in front of him didn't fall apart. Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. Was an awesome game. Yeah, it was. That was a fun game. The hat in the top left looks like fire. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's my old beer league team that I want to start again one day. Maddie says, bring Trocheck back. We need Vinny back. I'm not opposed to bringing him back. It's just, it's kind of the same thing with Nico, even though the Devils are closer to getting it together than the Rangers are. The Rangers, the wheels falling off of them, they've been putting Band-Aids on it for the last couple of years, and it finally happened. That would also require a haul, as we saw with the Keandre Miller trade. I mean, granted, Carolina fleeced them. They fleeced the hell out of them because, you basically traded picks and a traffic cone to get Key, and Key's been really good. He has his moments where it's like, but yeah, Zibanejad, no, I'm not big on that. He's kind of redundant, and two, he's not as good defensively as Brendan Moore would want him to be, I don't think. I'm not saying he's bad defensively, but what Brendan Moore expects of his centers, Zibanejad does not have that in his toolkit. Lackey, what's up, buddy? That's where Bussy went in the Matrix in the last 20 seconds. Couldn't believe my eyes. Yeah, dude, I had goosebumps during that whole thing. I was like, wow. That was a very, even like the last 1.6 seconds or whatever it was after that icing was nerve-wracking. Really, for the whole game, he was in the zone. He was. Hate that for Robbie. Yeah, me too. I'm hoping he's all right. Jarvis stat reached 100 games today, 86, 7-7, when 24 scores. That's a good thing to have. Sherwood to the Sharks. Yep, we talked about that a little bit. Frank Saravelli was on the radio show today and reported Carolina, along with a handful of teams, have been hot after EP40. Can't say I'm surprised. Yeah, like I said, I have my doubts about bringing Pettersson in. It makes more sense for LA than it does for Carolina. So I don't know why Philly would trade for EP40. They are so young. I think that's why they want to do it, is they want to bring in somebody who's got a little bit more experience and that they can build their top six around a little bit more. Because the idea of Pettersson playing with someone like Mishkov, if they would, and again, Derek Dunn, him and I have talked about this. They need to unhandcuff Mishkov and just let him play. Like, that kid's good. Is he the fastest? No, but he's very, very creative player, very good possession player, very good at generating entries. Is he the greatest defensively? No, but it's like people calling him Fat Vay Michkov and stuff. I'm just kind of like, no, he's a good player. He needs to be allowed to play the way that he wants to play and just be left alone. Seeing a lot about KK's fit with Detroit. I can totally see that. Well, yeah, I could. I'm just wondering who they'd have to move somebody out to make that work. I think, just thinking about the salary cap and everything, might be a 3-team trade again. I don't know if LA can fit EP40 under their cap. So we're getting late enough in the season now to where it's not about the whole cap. It's, the daily cap hit and the daily cap accrual. And one of the things that has been talked about as far as EP40 is the other teams that are looking to trade for him are expecting Vancouver to retain some degree of salary. for Carolina and Los Angeles and Philly, I think that all of them would want that as part of the deal, is that they retain some of the salary. So, and it's not the fact that it would be a ton of salary, it's how long they would be retaining it. If LA can manage to get that, or anybody for that matter can manage Vancouver to get that, he gets to be a lot easier to move, because I don't think Carolina would bring Pettersson in unless they get his cap hit below Aho's. So he's at 11.6 right now. They would probably want it to be more around 9.6 to bring him in. And, not a ton of money, but it's a long time that $2 million is tied up. And Vancouver does need to hit the hammer, and they started doing that. Like, that was very apparent when they traded Quinn Hughes. So I think they're just waiting for the best opportunity to move him. I think it's imminent. I think it will be before the Olympic break. KK Serrato, a first and a third for EP40. I don't know about that, man. I'm not totally on the EP40 train. I never have been. For me, at some point, you've got to solve 2C, especially in an RBA system where you have to have multiple centermen who can play his system to a T, which right now you have one. I'll say you have two, which is Aho and Stahl. But Stahl, just even though he's had above normal production by his standards this season, it's not going to last. And then this is, again, not a slight on Jordo, but like, he should have been off the power play by now. Aho's winning faceoffs again. So I don't know why he's still there. And his minutes need to be on the penalty kill. That's where he helps the team the most. So that, like I said, the biggest thing that worries me about EP40 is the contract. That's the biggest thing. And, when I look at his speed, I have two concerns about that. One, has he always been that slow? And two, is he just playing a low effort game? That's what I want to know. Because both of those are problems. You could argue that the latter is a bigger problem. So there's that to be taken into consideration. But any forward on this team can't have a sub 22 mile per hour average speed burst. It's just not going to work. The defense, you can get away with it a little bit. The forwards, not so much. But all right, guys, that is going to be it for me tonight. I'm going to get ready to I'll answer this last one here. Well, I think that's what a trade would look like. Whether he's the guy we should be after is another question. Yeah, a trade, that type of package going out for a center, I'm fine. If they send that out and bring Robert Thomas back, I'm good with it. For EP40, I'm just never been 100% on board with that. Like, I just can't. I'd rather bring Trocheck back, because you already have you have a perfect sample size knowing that he fits. So if he desires to come back to Carolina, don't know. That's something that only him and Chris Drury know. So we will see, though. But good win. Good job by the boys tonight. And good job by all of you doing the polling and everything like that. I am going to get ready because I have a long day ahead of me tomorrow. Will says I'm late, but I will just say Bussy masterclass. I agree. Absolute masterclass. Without him, Carolina doesn't win this game. Like, they actually probably get killed. All right, guys. That's going to be it for me tonight. I am going to get ready to get up early in the morning and do a bunch of stuff. Thank you all very much for joining me. Again, check out the links in the description. There's donation link, and there is the store there now if you want to pick you up a hat or a sticker, and there will be more on there soon. Y'all have a good night. I will see you later.